Hello again. So I think I'll just dive straight into it because you've already seen me once today and I don't want to bore you too much. So, as we know, weather affects all outdoor activities and travel in Antarctica, the sub-Antarctic and Southern Ocean, and it plays a part in many injuries, incidents and deaths. Decision errors, poor risk perception and a lack of situational awareness can adversely impact people's safety. Just forgetting your jacket can kill you in Antarctica's extreme and isolated environment. These regions are remote, and with limited resources and search and rescue capacity, it can take weeks to get to a hospital or medical care. While there may be only 1,000 people on the continent in winter, during summer there are over 5,000 people working for National Antarctic Programs, and pre-COVID over 70,000 tourists. The number of visitors is expected to increase in coming years, and with climate change, known conditions, locations and routes will alter. Therefore, there are many opportunities for things to go wrong and potential difficulties in evacuating large numbers of people or coping with environmental emergencies. Therefore, making good or safe weather decisions is important. To help people make safer decisions, we need to understand their decision-making, operational and work contexts, their hazard risk perception, information needs and constraints. However, there's limited research on weather information and decision-making in the Antarctic and sub-Antarctic, so my PhD project aims to begin addressing some of these gaps. Findings can help inform weather service improvements, training and education, and additionally, Antarctica can be used as an analogue for weather-related decision-making in other extreme environments and during extreme weather events. So this is a data set I was talking about earlier. So I surveyed and interviewed people who'd been recently deployed to Antarctica or the sub-Antarctic, and many participants were very experienced with living and working in Antarctica. They had an average of 2.5 years of cumulative time spent there. The red dots on the central figure show where people were deployed to a variety of stations with National Antarctic Programs and tourist ships. 58% of participants spent at least half of their working time outdoors, and in terms of weather-specific training or environmental information from an employer, 74% received some information, 40% received training about either the weather or the environment, and 19% received neither any weather information or training. So key themes emerging from the interview data include those about planning, procedures and decision processes, the importance of experience and how people learn through their time in Antarctica, people's future and current needs for decision making, risk mitigation and safety, non-weather considerations and pressures when making decisions, people's decision making authority and ability to make decisions for themselves and their own activities, and themes around communication, uncertainty and safety. Experience was seen to convey expertise, and experienced people were more trusted as sources of local knowledge and advice and assistance in making decisions. Situational awareness, that is the awareness of the environment around you and the ability to anticipate changes in that environment, was important for adapting to changing weather conditions and people's capacity to stay safe. There were recurring themes around managing expectations of people and tourists new to Antarctica in terms of what can be achieved, the impacts of potential weather delays, and the need for safety, contingency plans, and flexibility. Future needs included themes around training and education, accessibility to weather information, and improved technology. Good communication and trust were factors in people's ability to operate effectively in Antarctica. Group discussions around the weather, risks and prioritisation of tasks were important for planning and team function as well as cohesion. However, where there was a lack of transparency in management priorities and decisions, or a mismatch in levels of operational experience, calibrations of perceived risk or perceived lost opportunities, frustration and a loss of trust with managers occurred. The expectations of paying customers and the pressure to complete tasks, among other factors, could have impact on decision making. However, these were usually weighed against risk mitigation and safety considerations. Weather professionals were most frequently seen as trusted advisors, there to provide expert interpretation of weather information. Forecasters were often asked to provide more detail and explanations to clarify the forecast information. Forecasters also saw educating users as a part of their role. More research is needed to understand the influence of individual differences on decision-making and team functioning. We found that the most common weather decisions people made in the Antarctic and sub-Antarctic regions were around the planning and scheduling of daily work. People would ask, are the weather conditions suitable for the planned job? Do we have long enough? Will we be safe and comfortable? And what clothing or equipment might I need? What is the timing of when the weather change comes through? Weather-related decisions were most often discussed with work colleagues, weather professionals, supervisors, their management and other expeditioners. For some roles like pilots, every decision they make is based on the weather and about avoiding bad weather. Forecasters mentioned that the weather prediction models weren't as accurate in the Antarctic regions, nor is the weather information as easily available. However, only some of the participants were aware that Antarctic forecasts were more uncertain compared to the weather service they might receive back home. To support the decision-making, people use weather information from weather forecasts, the internet, and real-time weather data displays. The importance of weather information for decision-making was a theme throughout the survey, the importance of wind information for decision-making was a theme throughout the survey and interview data and reflects findings from other polar research. Although about 6% of people did not have internet access while deployed, around 66% used the internet to access either forecasts or real-time weather observations, or both. Most people working for National Antarctic Programs had access to forecasts through their country's weather service provider. However, not everyone had access to location-specific forecasts or multi-day outlooks. People would use multiple sources of information in their decision-making processes to help cope with the lack of or incomplete information, uncertainty, and also inaccuracies in the forecasts. Different weather information sources are used at different stages of people's planning and decision-making processes. When people are scheduling activities and then planning ahead for the day or up to a week, they will use forecasts. A model output ensembles and sites like windy.com, depending on what was available, and also personal preference. As the proposed start time for an activity nears, people then will start to pay more attention to current conditions by looking at real-time weather displays, and also often observing conditions for themselves, looking out the window to check the accuracy of the forecast. As a part of people's ongoing situational awareness and risk mitigation, people would often monitor environmental conditions and real-time weather displays throughout their activities and operations, allowing them to cancel their activities and plans if weather parameters moved outside of their comfort levels. Experienced expeditioners are ready to respond to deteriorating conditions by enacting their contingency plans or stopping a task. They will also rapidly adapt their plans to take advantage of unexpectedly good weather. People often have a story of something they learnt or didn't expect, a mistake they made the first time they went to Antarctica. For example, you put your gloves down and they blow away because you weren't expecting the wind. Or knowing the direction of bad weather comes from McMurdo, Concordia or Casey. If the horizon's disappearing, it's time to get back inside because there's a blizzard coming. These stories are often passed via word of mouth and in storytelling from old experienced expeditioners to the new people as a form of learning and mentoring. People will often ask questions of someone who's seen to have more experience in Antarctica or of a specific area. When local forecasting services aren't available, weather information sources and websites are often passed by word of mouth by team members. With people receiving varying levels of training and education about Antarctica's weather from their employers, talking to other expeditioners and those with more experience can be vital for new people and an important part of their learning about the local environment, the hazards, and how to operate safely. This advice to new team members can give us ideas about what information we could include in education and materials and where we might want to focus training. Advice to people can also be specific to jobs and locations, include environmental concerns and wildlife protection. There is a strong ethic of looking out for each other and keeping team members safe. The weather in Antarctica and the sub-Antarctic is highly changeable. Being aware of your surroundings and weather changes, knowing how to look after yourself in extreme weather and having a contingency plan for when the weather deteriorates is important to staying safe in the field. Experienced expeditioners always prepare and pack an expectation of the worst conditions regardless of what a forecaster might say. People have stories of sunshine and calm conditions, rapidly changing to blowing snow and poor visibility and rain. In Antarctica's transient populations, new expeditioners from Australia or more temperate regions may have never experienced snow or ice, extreme weather or cold environments. Therefore, experiencing poor weather and a blizzard or ice travel is important to their knowledge for staying safe. In the field, people can be packed up and ready to return to a safe location or shelter within 15 minutes to a few hours, depending on the amount of equipment, the group size, their activities, the distance to be covered to their shelter, and mode of transport, which might be foot, helicopters or small boats. Experienced expeditioners will tailor their plans and activities to known weather conditions and forecasts, avoiding complicated and long tasks or working closer to shelter, leaving early or staying inside when poor weather is expected. More accurate and reliable forecasts would allow for better planning and adaptation to the weather conditions, increasing efficiency and reducing the likelihood of being caught out in poor conditions. When multi-day outlooks and forecasts are available, expeditions will plan ahead, but they expect a degree of uncertainty in the timing of weather events and that the accuracy will decrease without longer-term outlooks. So greater accuracy and specificity in the timing of weather and wind changes would be useful to users and assist with their activity planning. For example, knowing the wind will increase at 2 p.m. or after 4, rather than broadly this afternoon or today. Weather forecasts and current real-time weather data are equally critical to decision-making and safety. Participants were constrained by weather conditions, management decisions, limited information, accessibility and inaccuracies, as well as inadequate resolution and weather prediction models. Tailoring and improving risk communication, weather-specific training, educational materials would all benefit both expeditioners and operators. Further research is needed to unpack and understand the influence of experience, weather salience, hazard perception and trust on decision-making and operational function in Antarctica. Thank you very much. That's all right. Rushing to get there.
Thank you, Vicky.
Yeah.
Are there questions for Vicky? From anybody? Vito? Yep.
Normally, any station have some guidelines and rules for field operation.
Yes.
Have you checked this and make comparison and see if they are effective in help and reduce the risk?
I think they're effective for management when they're new to know, but some stations, and it does vary, like with the terminology and what the systems between, particularly the US program and what we have within the Australian program. And I think they're a good guide, but it's also people still need to travel between buildings when there might be an amber alert, for example, because if the generator turns off, you can't not have power in the middle of winter when everything's going to freeze. So there are limits. It's more about keeping people who don't need to be outside going for a wander when they shouldn't, as well as just being aware that even though it's sunny, take your jacket with you, because 5 minutes later there's a blizzard and you can't get back to shelter. It could be a very big risk. Yeah. But it's definitely something, particularly with the ComNap and things, to look at more, because it is very different between programs and locations.
Thank you. Dave?
Okay, thanks, Vicky. So I've got a question. Maybe this isn't quite the right venue to ask it, but I was thinking about the lead time, that these forecasts can be issued. Now, based on your interviewing of all these different people, did you get a feel for, okay, they're not as good as in mid-latitudes, right? I mean, that's almost transparent. They have improved a lot. So do you think that the expeditioners can get useful forecasts of, like day to day, or with these big events, when the conditions can change very, very rapidly and are most dangerous for everybody?
Yeah, when it's available. Anyone can look at Windy and get a broad idea just looking at the metagram, and then that's where the ensembles with the spaghetti ensembles, people work out, well, the lines are converging and there's a peak for wind, so we know there's a blizzard coming. It's just the exact timing might not be, particularly during the winter when we don't have daily forecasts for the Australian Antarctic Program. So that's when, you know, the more specific and the more frequent, the more people will use it. And, you know, the desire is there. It's just depends. And then there's things like we need 4 days to do such and such task of good weather without blizzing, because people have to stay outside to watch a pipe or, you know, pumping water, pumping fuel. So those kind of activities, it's a bit trickier because you're starting to get to the limits sometimes of, you know, those lead times in terms of when a front might be coming through.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think things have...
Oh, definitely. You have
you
the
know,
people
it's
who've
like-
been going for 20 years, they will mention, and you kind of have different levels of service. If you've got forecasting services on station or access to the good models and data, you know, that's your higher level service. And then you kind of move down through and you're getting to your tourism operators who have publicly available information and may not know what's out there, which is also part of the problem. You know, Joe told me this website, so that's what we used all year. We didn't know about X, Y, and Z. That would have been much better for the task. So there's a couple different things in that, yeah. Yeah. Don't worry, you're doing a good job, Dave.
Thank you again, Vicky.
Yeah.